Hello, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon at this stage. First of all, you're very welcome to UCD Library. My name is Marie Burke. I'm one of the Associate Directors of the UCD Library Service, and it's a great honour to welcome you all here this morning. I'm standing in for my colleague Ursula Byrne, who unfortunately is in the States. And Ursula, along with Lucy, are the co-founders and leading lights in the Irish Poetry Reading Archive. And this event, which is now in its fourth year, is a very important part of that archive. So just a couple of very small housekeeping things. In the unlikely event of a fire alarm, you just proceed out the way you came in, go down the stairs and congregate outside. But hopefully that's not going to happen. And there is tea and coffee there if anybody feels like at any stage going to have something. And when the poetry is finished, don't forget to check into our nostalgia exhibit, our Frank McGuinness exhibit, take one of our nostalgia tours. There's lots of things going on. Listen to the poetry jukebox or see the rain poetry. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Lucy, who's going to pick up the next piece of this. Okay.
Thanks, Marie. My name is Lucy Collins, and before I hand over to Elaine, I just wanted to present the prizes for this year's haiku competition. This is the first of these competitions, but we're hoping it's going to be an annual event. And this is tied into the Raining Poetry project that Marie mentioned. If you've been out and about on campus over the last few days or weeks, and if it's been raining, which it might have been, you'll notice texts appearing, poem texts appearing on the ground, both outside the library and around the lake area. So if you haven't already seen them, we'd really love if you kept an eye out for them as you leave the reading. These poems are both poems that were written by the winners of the haiku competition. I'll be presenting the prizes now in a minute, but also by three Irish haikuists, Gabriel Rosenstock, who has a poem, Oscailga, out there, and Amanda Bell and Maeve O'Sullivan. So it's a great opportunity to see those texts. So before we get kicking off properly with the performance, I'd just like to present the prizes. So we had a really great range of poems coming in for the award. So instead of just presenting one prize as we had planned, we decided to have two. So we have two winners, in fact, and two runners-up. Now, our second runner-up, Darcy Duggan, can't unfortunately be here today, so she'll be getting her prize separately. But our other three winners are here and will be reading as part of the programme too. So the first runner-up then is Leanna O'Hara. So, I think you have to go this way. Do you want me to come down? Or? Gymnastics involved here. And our two winners are, first of all, Nidhi Zakaria Ipe. So my last bit of clamouring then is to announce our second winner, Liz Houchin. So without further ado, Elaine Feeney.
Hi everyone, it's really lovely to be here. Thanks so much to UCD for trusting me to put a gaggle of poets together. I think there's some of my favourite poets writing in Ireland and performing at the moment. So I'm really blown away by them all being here together. So I think you're in for a real treat. So the way that the day will work out, or the few hours will work out, we're going to have three poets and some music at the beginning, then a very brief break. Then there'll be 3 or 4 more poets, music, and then the end. and that will finish up with Emma Kerwin, so you'll all have to stay on to hear that. I am aware that we are clashing with Emily Pine, so if you leave mid-amazing poet, we forgive you if you're here for, both gigs, so that's absolutely fine. So we're going to start off with Liz Quirk, Stefan O'Brien and Stephen Sexton. And Liz Quirk hails from Tralee, County Kerry. She lives in Spiddle, County Galway, and her debut collection of poetry, The Road Slowly, is a wonderful collection of love poems. Her work has also been published in the Irish Times, the Irish Examiner, Southwark, Crannog, the Stony Thursday Book. She was the winner of the 2017 Listole's Writer Week short poem competition, Dromineer Literary Festival Flash Fiction Competition, and the 2015 Poems for Patients at Court. She was also nominated for a Hennessy Literary Award in 2016. Stefan O'Brien is a graduate of the Masters in Modern Irish in UCD. He is currently undertaking a PhD exploring the concept of masculinity in contemporary Irish language poetry. He writes prose and poetry in both English and Irish and has been published in Poetry Ireland Review. His poetry deals with many themes from language, history and heritage to death, life and ladybirds. Stephen Sexton lives in Belfast and teaches at the Seamus Heaney Centre for Poetry. His first book, If All the World and Love Were Young, such a wonderful title, will be available in July, published by Penguin. His poems have appeared in Granta, Poetry Ireland, Poetry London and Best British Poetry 2015. And if you weren't so lovely, I'd be very jealous. Farah El is a singer-songwriter. She has eclectic influences, including Arabian echoes from her Libyan background. Based in Dublin, she moved to Ireland with her family as a newborn child. Her ethos as an artist is to spread positivity, creativity, and growth into our society. She runs creative coaching workshop sessions using music, poetry, and movement, and she's working on her debut album due in 2020. So we'll give them all a very warm round of applause. Liz.
Good morning or afternoon. I'm not 100% sure what time it is right now, so either of those. My name is Liz Quirk, as Elaine said, and what I'm going to read for you today are two poems from my debut collection, The Road Slowly, and two poems from what will be my second collection, which is out in 2020. It's called How We Arrive in Winter. So first of all, I'm going to begin with a poem that's sort of a coming of age poem, a coming out poem. It's sort of a poem of becoming. And this poem is called Women Poets Teach Me How to Be a Woman. First, I was shown a world through a window, invited to witness at 17 how one woman's heat could be passed to another, the comfort and risk of a closed door, delicate and sweet as a promise, the way soft lighting can bruise silence into a throat, signposts in the yellow room, all pointing to images in my own mirror, stanzas thick with language I ached to translate. And when I finally found the words, tasted them in the curve of a pale neck, I spoke them aloud, not in my voice but hers, recognized the rabbit's foot dim with dust, cooling jewels alone in their beds, and all night I felt their absence and I burned. Years later, love led me to where women waited with children young like mine, their lexicon full of all I couldn't name, handed over heavy as bad news. Details penned precisely. I read till I understood the burning in my gut, the loss they knew, those women who loved with an almost fearful love. They filled their books with ways my parents remembered their small son gone too soon from them. These women put into words what a swing looks like when a child no longer plays in it, how bags of clothes drag in a tearful hoisting to an attic's dark. One assured that the art of losing isn't hard to master, but how wrong she turned out to be. How wrong. Thank you. sorry, just need a bit of water there. The second poem and final poem I'm going to read from The Road Slowly is, it's a very important poem for me. It's a poem about the ways in which I became a mother. I'm in a same-sex relationship, and we had 2 daughters, and I was the non-biological mother, so I had to come towards motherhood through a different direction, I suppose. And this poem was written 8 months after our first daughter was born, so the first 8 months must have been a bit ropey. This poem is called Nurture. In the 9 months I didn't nourish you, I made notes. I studied the seasons for ingredients to encourage your growth. Scraps of paper, post-its hidden, in case anyone would view my thoughts, pity my trivia of leaves and berries. A mom, yet not a mother, a woman, yet not a woman. My preparation took place in private, not in maternity wards or hospital corridors, but in the hallways of my mind, where I could put up pictures, timelines, fill corkboards with plans. As the folic acid built your brainstem, I collated ideas to stimulate it further, mapped journeys for us, paths we could walk together, a staggered relay to start when your other mother passed your tiny form to me. And I could see myself holding your hand, using my limbs to scaffold the structure your mother put so beautifully in place. I am your mom, without the biology of mothering. All I have for you is my heart, my brain, my lists of things, all but those 9 months when I was waiting. Thank you. So this is a slight shift in gear now into what will be the second collection. The second collection is called How We Arrive in Winter, and it will largely deal with the illness and death of my father. He died last year from pancreatic cancer, so it won't be like the best crack in the world of a poetry book. So just a slight warning there. So I'm going to read 2 poems from that book. This first poem is kind of, so he had pancreatic cancer, and I was thinking, God, I was thinking about how, in the past, people would have used those things, pancreas and stomach and entrails and things, to make delicacies. So I was thinking about that idea of sweetbread and how something fortifying can be made from something absolutely disgusting, and that would something that would eventually kill my father. So this poem is called The Promise of Sweetbread. Like everything, it begins in the tissues, mutation concealed where no light gathers, and it is left to me to explain how a delicacy can be fashioned from such offending material. Demonstrate how to pluck items from your torso as will defend and keep you longer. Milk white, a telling liquor from the drain in your side, dislodged poison, spilling your secrets millimetre by marked up milliliter. I've already promised that I'll make something new from this, articulate instructions you've left insoluble particles to adhere to my own structures for always, ridged in the moss plied from your paving stones, ways to give new life to listless, unmoving articles. I'm chaperoning mementos like you showed me, corralling, deciding which meat meets the scrap heap and what these days will keep. So come beside me while you can argue such vanity. Help me raise totems from their ward wall lurking. Split hairs with me over thymus, throat, gullet versus pancreas, heart, belly. We can talk immunity and T cells over steeping blends from deepest, darkest non-geography, that loose leaf that comes out on occasion, Weddings mostly. Not this time when the priest calls to the door. They have email addresses on cards now. Such a foul piece of architecture, worse than a low-call number. I won't get there on time, but parts of you are in my pocket. I'll hide them in my upper anterior, directly behind my sternum. And I challenge any tape measuring box ticker to crack me open. I'm keeping your elements until I can devise a recipe bold enough to sweeten with all the things you promised. The inner body items that require all the stars in the system. Pink-grey lobes, those splitting molecules that recognize that there has never been such a call for light as this. Sorry, I'm wild for the water this morning. Okay, I'll leave you with this one. It's the title poem of the next collection. It's kind of I suppose it is a little poem sequence that kind of includes the bookends of about a decade of time. So in maybe about 10 years ago, when my partner and I were in Australia, her sister was killed, and that was a really jarring experience for her and for us as a couple. And then 10 years later, we found ourselves in a completely different location, and now my father had died. So it was these two kind of tragedies bookended this decade. So this is, as well, I did say the collection is going to be a bit tough, but so thank you very much for paying attention, and I'm going to leave you with this. This poem is called How We Arrive in Winter. We luxuriate beneath the jacaranda tree while it rains. You discard all your coverings, utter a challenge as we inhabit this, our first deluge. I keep myself together. Understand you're here with me only because you can't be there. The water pushes into your pores, threatens to flood you with reminders of how confining our courtyard all the way across the world really is. It rains. You scratch furrows into your skin. Endure this Sydney summer rainstorm like I've handed you an unwelcome gift. She has been dead a month. You mind the roadside graveyard where you left her, all its lonely territories. So anytime life blooms in unexpected ways, you clutch it till your body racks and heaves. We are too young in our love to have the right words for this. No one will tell me when the perfect thing will come. In this grief memory we are making, for you I can be brave. I drop my shorts and shirt to meet yours. Experience the way the confines of this continent shatter you. I meet you where you hold yourself aching. Settle in your wake until I am not 23 and awkward. Eventually, the rainfall slows. Close my grate to the open top washer, and we endure season after season until 10 whole years pass by. It rains on ash boughs now, instead of fragrant frangipani. We root ourselves in dark brown soil where once our earth loomed red. At night we see our breath, and cold to your bones you say, can you believe she's dead so long? I say, I dreamed him the other night, but he couldn't speak. I've forgotten his voice outside of how he said my name. This is how we arrive in winter, how we can stand to stay outside breathing as all we love turns to mulch. Sometimes I wish we suspended time in that shotgun house on Camden Street, that we had the safety of the middle room where we nested into each other like fledglings. When it's bad, I ask you, could we ever go back? Could we try and answer the phone calls that carried us home? I see myself back at my desk, The hard yards between Newtown and roads soften. Work, sleep, work, sleep, work, sleep, work. Weekday beers with Rich and Sam in the courty. It's then I remember times when my phone would blare and it's him, always him calling. And I describe the platforms I wake on, how the air feels acrid and too warm in my mouth. We talk out all news and non-news through Strathfield, Stanmore. I lose him under the bridge to Newtown. Say I'll call him again when I'm up on King Street. And when I do, the conversation turns to this and that. I promise him I'm safe. I'm nearly home. I'm nearly home. I'm nearly home. Thank you.
Jeeves, Mr. Stefan O'Brien. I'm Stefan O'Brien. So I'm going to read 3 poems today, 2 in Irish, and the second poem is a translation in English of the first poem. So the first poem is about emigration, sort of a modern Celtic tiger exile story in the form of a poem, and it's called Imacht na Níorlaí. Tá éonéil saganne imithe thar a bhád bán chun na heastráile, de sé go ann na bananí a fiocha. Turas léas an olú spéire s turas síl, chun críocha imichéana, féin le haimsú I gahar chuimhíoch, I meas go phobal an sin, na deorathe nó a cheolta. Sláán ráit ag lena bhan, sláán ráit ag lena iad, sláán ráit ag le gaci le rúrí is rua fácha tefhirde I dtí chanal is oin. Tá sláán ráite ag saganne. Saol na nínta sa sé saol a nimmerkick, ach trí le tarlúnt, rairchanne le feicáil, cuimhní le balú, brós le scéalta den ile a bhaile, má ilinse a bhaile. Casan banéir I Queensland, a strálach maná dar a banam cara, chalín rua de chloch na ngail, síntar eci in ínín trá, sí an seo ó na céad lá. Is tá cara sásta I Queensland, agus tá saganne sásta lé. Tarlíonn clandómh, tarlíonn post, tarlíonn teach mór costasach. Córáte Skype gach seachtain, is mamú ag búla le garbhach le cabhar FaceTime. Tarlíonn saol nua saganne. Insin ige teacht a reis, a chláán na hógáil a measc hena chríocha chuoiní, mac mar amáí chun nín in a rincóir, saol a óige a helabhúrís, ach fanní sé insin ige. Tá ónéal saganne imithe thar a bhád bán chun na heastráile, ag leanúnt an tanú scoilig is éire a ágáil, imacht le eile. Thank you. So this poem is a translation of that poem. Imacht na Níorlaí means flight of the Earls, and it's a reference to the historical flight of the Earls when the Gaelic chieftains left, and it's a modern version of this. Flight of the Earls. Our own Hugh O'Neill has gone abroad. He has emigrated down under, because he has the chance to work picking bananas. A day spent in the sky, a lifetime trip to a faraway land. To find himself in a stranger city with the rest of the Celtic tiger exiles. His goodbye said to Mam, goodbye said to Dad, goodbye said to every Rory and Hugh Rowe left behind at Tyrconnell and Tyrone. Our Hugh has said his goodbyes. A life of wonder is an emigrant's life. Adventures to have and sights to see, memories to collect, stories for when he comes home, if he comes home. Our Hugh meets a woman in Queensland, an Aussie by the name of Cara, a ginger beauty of Irish descent. She has a Fenian ancestor and she's been here all her life. Cara is happy in Queensland, and our Hugh is happy with Cara. A family happens, and an occupation, and a large, expensive house happens. Weekly Skype conversations, and granny meets grandson via FaceTime. A new life happens to our Hugh. He's planning to come home, to raise his young family amongst the landscape of his memory. His son, a county hurler. His daughter, an Irish dancer. His childhood repossessed. He'll always be planning to come home. Our own Hugh O'Neill has gone abroad. He's emigrated down under, keeping with the Irish pastime of leaving home, flight of another air. Gormaggie, thank you. So the final poem I read doesn't have an Irish or an English translation, but I'll explain a bit of where this poem came from. So I was walking to work one morning, and I was walking through the local park, and I could hear the birds singing. And it was one of the first times that I really listened to the birds singing in the morning on this way to work, and I really got into it. It was really, really nice listening to the birds in the morning. And then the end of the park came, and I had to get back onto the road where all the cars were, and the noise was deafening in comparison. But when the cars when there was a bit of a queueness, a bit of a silence in the cars, I could hear the birds again. I felt like they were followed me from the park, and that was wonderful to actually, that I didn't lose them. And then there were terrible, terrible noise, a lawnmower. Someone was cutting the grass in front of me, coming between me and the birds again. But even when I went past that, the birds came back again. So this poem details that roller coaster journey of walking to work. And it's called Cór Éin, which means a choir of birds. Jachar dom ag eol bín a ahint, har cean ré thurin na mótar ag dul harm. Níl clachtaí ag mo chlús eis maidin an úsle sa farchá túl. Íslí an thurin is tagan thugam glórtha ag gór na glóra, níomhras ina geol. Cé híad a dearm, spincín smólach lasar chuile. Ní fistum ach íomhnas a ghórtha is riógrin na cuaice ag chur fáilte rú. Táid ag freagart a chéile, is ag freagart orm. Táid ag tort churadum nuair a scuilta ornaí ó manam, a etlíonn chun na náirde thar chean ré thurin na mótar le clistáil haran. Tá manam leo ag rince, blaise beag den bhlachas, glór in éon chór ag tort scíhándó le hetailt leo sa cheol. Fectal róm bóthar is dearan na parke, is tám scanrathe im bheithaigh ribh imimecht ón tearman. Corm cos tarmac is clisham thugam búr a bhabhríonn an dón. SUV ag glúiseacht róm ag fógart go bhfuil gnó bunaige. Ón taobh eile a bhacasáil de anahí na bheo ag teacht imthró, a dhí le sánathe slugtha ag garcar a crúca bhulig. Tá manam ag strachallumm, ag tarng siirme I dro an cheol is a éin. Is gealdum go glishin siad a olinch, is tógan sús scíháin leo manam a rashogum. Is fanin siad lin bhlach na báireachta dar nárdú thar chean scréchorin na mótar ag brostú haran. Róm cíam arachta alc, liú an lán mór ag bagart ús mo chór, is titchan an saoil faoin a smacht gan neach bio ach torin. Me scanrathe im bheithaigh agus manam ag gcuí de ile an cheol. Fil a deirse, fil a gí a éana ná fág fa úfás a naigh seo me. Siúla mar raig is tagan cíle rís an dón, agus churann manam beor mo chlúas agus tagan na héin thugam. Tá clachtaí ag manam inis íomhnas an éon chóir, clise mé ag éisteach leo nuair is gan an dón cheol. I lár na hard carrach, tá chuile cinál torin, idir ré scréach is na mótar ag dul haran. Ach tá na héin de éon glór ag geol níomhrach ná, sóbhnas an éon chóir, dom ardú is dom tharthá. Gur míle maigí. Thank you very much.
Hello, how are you doing? Sorry, I was negotiating some water with Elaine. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello. Oh, no, thank you. Thank you. Hello, lovely to see you. I'm delighted to be here. I'm delighted that you're here. I'm going to read a couple of poems. Thank you, Elaine, for having me. It's very kind of you. Okay, I'm going to start with a poem about the dentist. I don't know about you, but many of my, certainly not best, but certainly most interesting thoughts happen there in that very vulnerable moment. This is kind of about that. The chair. The old Hitachi dual cassette was pain and elegant with age, and the branches were, and the sash window was open with pain, and the afternoon was adequate and pain. Children roller skating in the street were pain, and the hum of the imminent sunset was. Would I say today was, and all today's airs? Yes, I would bet tomorrow morning on it. My mouth these many years was wealthy with pain. For so many years I thought prodigal meant destined to return transformed and beloved. The dentist doesn't ask me where I've been. I'm tired of the war, I wanted to say, but my jaw fell slack, so he buried the nerve, finding in his caulking gun of composite the inverse of a tooth, the way a good eye can find intemperate horses galloping within a block of marble. Then the x-rays. I've been setting off supermarket alarms lately, I wanted to say, to tell someone. Whose are the dreams I'm having? I'm never there on the balcony with free jazz and treason. Then the pain was replaced with its memory, which is to say that nothing ever changes. He left. The hygienist grew ungenerous with silence. I rinsed with something glowing green. You know, she talks about you sometimes, she said. Who does? I said. Oh, thanks. Very kind. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's a poem that kind of, you know, that marvelous feeling of doing, of having all of your attention taken by something else. So your terrible imagination roams freely, everywhere and nowhere at the same time. This is another kind of example of this. You know, again, what's going on, I'm not sure, but I'm looking out the window in the flat where I used to live, over at an office block. That's largely it. The name of the poem is The Dancers. All the syrup-lighted afternoon, I watched the office block be dismantled into discretions. Half-moon desks rolled like a fiberboard month across the gummy carpet, the clank and tango of a filing cabinet impressed by 3 stout men towards the backmost stairwell, where the line of people standing one abreast snakes throughout the building's 7 floors. I water the feeble mint and the oregano flowers and the hyacinths in the shade of my balcony, and the whippings start up again in the street below. On a bus somewhere, or a train, you come towards me, and the second-generation children singing pop songs on the mezzanine, approximating the dance routines, whose fortunes of language they cannot cherish yet. You'll say, I've never felt such uncomplicated joy, and we'll stand there in the hall with your suitcases, listening to whatever rendition, whatever song. And you'll say, what a thing to share this flake of time in their company. What a thing wild lavender can still flourish in the grounds of the derelict church. I didn't set a timer, so I'm being absolutely strict. Oh, thanks. So I'm being absolutely strict with myself. Forgive this haste. Okay, I'm gonna read 2 poems that are ever so slightly longer, and then one more. The first of these I feel as though requires a tiny bit of explanation. It is a poem that is in memory of. I guess many of us know these people. I don't know how to talk about them really, but I guess the best way I could talk about them sensitively is to say people who died on their own terms and the terms of their own choosing. This is one of those people. The poem sort of meanders an awful lot. It takes a while to get to him. It goes to Denver for some reason in Colorado. And it sort of ends up with a piece of fan fiction that I have written. It doesn't exist. So the extremely bad bit of this poem is bad on purpose. And I trust your judgment on what bit that is. Okay, the name of the poem is Terrestrials. A sparrow weaves over the derelict terrace the psychics used to meet in, towards the snow-garnished mountains. They brought their lozenges of grief here, held each other's pallid hands, and summoned reeds of kindness into their voices. The men down tools, take lunch, smoke in a row, dangle their legs from the wall. They're kids mostly, a xylophone of hard hats tuneless in the rain. The half-built apartment block is waiting, and they will never live there. I knew a boy who wanted to be a pilot so much that he became one. Farewell years of simulated taxiing on the world's fantastic runways. Oh, night flights over the patchwork of Europe. Oh, unscheduled layover. Oh, seatbelt sign. I knew a man who hiked into the mountains. His name was Early Morning Light. His name was Sunset in Libra. Between the Scots pine and the ash, he found the branch with his name on it and stepped off it into the air. I was thinking about dinosaurs and drinking beer in Denver when I heard the news. The beer was lovely, cold and tart. The bones were very buried in the planet. A few aspirin. Good night. The man was carried down from the mountains. His name was a rhetorical question the hustle of elegy is no answer to. I ought to telephone my father. I ought to mend this flapping epaulette. I ought to teach my tongue not to cut itself on the new edge of an old tooth. I ought to pour us each a toast of beer and get back to work on the fan fiction. Phew, Yuri said as the engine sputtered to a stop. That was a close one. Valentina smiled and a breeze took her hair. She thought, let us live for a long time. And the great spaceman climbed down from the cockpit and walked towards her. There she was on planet Earth. On the good Earth, they took each other's hands. Thanks. I know what you're thinking, and you're right. That might be the only example of Yuri Gagarin fan fiction that exists. Although, actually, that can't be the case. There must be more. Okay, I'd like to read two more poems. One of them concerns a fictional escape of lots of animals from a zoo, and the last one's about Italy. Actually, the one with the flying in it might have been more appropriate to segue to Italy, but here we are. Anyway, so yeah, this poem, I guess I was thinking about, again, a certain kind of, I lived in a flat for some time, and I was sort of thinking about the idea of animals roaming around a street. I guess there's this sense of things being inside other things. So me being animals escaping from a zoo, a kind of liberation, which would necessarily, for safety reasons, cause people, at least partly societally responsible for keeping them there, they would be obliged to stay in their properties. And I guess these things kept listing these sort of encasements of things. So I think that happens all the way through this. But that's only where it started. What happened after that, I can take no responsibility for it. The name of the poem is The Curfew. The radicals sprung the locks that night, hurrah, and their lovely collarbones were almost moonly. Rhinos shrieked and bellowed, elephants tromboned, and the animals nosed into town. Sunrise to sunrise, and sunrise we kept indoors. If you can't count your onions, what can you count? My grandfather used to say. He said a lot of things. Among the other miners, he was legendary. When no more than the thought of the pink crumple of his infant daughter's body came to mind, a glow would swell in the pit. The men would mayhem bauxite by the light his tenderness emitted. Some of me lived inside her even then. The memorial fountain says nothing of the weeks before the rescue failed, but mentions God, which, as my grandfather used to say, is just the name of the plateau you view the consequences of your living from, or something like that. He said a lot of things. He grew wise and weary as an albatross and left for that great kingdom of nevertheless. It would have pleased his handsome shoulders to watch this grizzly scoop for salmon in the fountain of his friends, or the Bengals, or the shakedown squad of chimpanzees who bang and bang on the grocery window. One by one, 11 miners starved to death. In the streets, they collar or tranquilize the ocelots and run a spike of ketamine through the plumbing in the fountain. Dromedaries blew mood around the pub, aloof under their reservoirs of fat. I don't sleep, but oh plateau, these days of violence have been my happiest. Even a cabbage is not without desire, my grandfather said one day. And now, among the animals, I feel under my wings the words for things I thought I knew departing, and I understand him. Thanks, you're very kind. Okay, I'm going to thank you again for having me. This is a delight. I'm loving to hear these poems. I'm excited to hear more. The last of these is a love poem. That should be enough. I had the very lovely occasion of going to, as it's variously known, the Protestant cemetery, the non-Catholic cemetery, the Englishman cemetery in Rome, where Keats and Shelley and all those old dudes are buried. And much as one would like to be sincere and proper, it's really hard to do that when it's so hot. So you go and you say, hey, John, right, gotta go, this is unbearable. So we were there in June or July, and it's kind of about that, and it's making fun of these people in a way that is only partly sincere. Only a little bit of it is. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you. The name of the poem is Romantic. It's hard to mourn in shorts, a straw hat, flip-flops. Cats from the sanctuary sunbathe nude on the headstones or cool the embassies of themselves among the pomegranate trees. Would the cicadas ever quit buckling their ribs? A gecko goes bouldering over Antonio Gramsci's grave, and the beautiful teeth of American tourists are sparkling, but they can't help it, and we are tourists too. We drink water by the Jeroboam and go over again the terrible things Percy Shelley did in the name of his fireproof heart. Die by drowning or don't. These remain our options. The water cycle magics on like something finer than a clock. And John Keats, it's nice to meet you under the circumstances. And John Keats, please excuse us. Time has made it late. It's today already, and we have only the rest of our lives. Long may we dabble our feet in the clear Italian lakes. Long may we mosey through the graveyards of the world. Thanks.
Thank you. Haven't even done anything yet. Okay, bye. This is called Silk. Binti Shalabi, Ayuna Sali, حبك من قلبي يا بنتي Every now and then I'll have forgotten it, but I know it's in me. At peace is all I've ever wanted. Then it hits me and it's so hard to be. This cloak and all its darkness, it carries me. Oh, how it feels when it's so haunted, and it makes it hard to see what's going on beneath. And it hits me. When it hits me, it makes it hard to be. And it hits me. When it hits me, it makes it hard to breathe. This veil of silk, what could be wrong with it? It's nothing but serene. My eyes are how you'd recognize me, because all that matters is my identity. But what if I can't see? What if I find it hard to carry on being me? And what if this could be the only gate that welcomes every single part of me. بنتي شلبي. How far can we go with all our profit, hoping that no one will see? Take me and take away our problems, and then maybe we can head out to sea. And what if this could be a solution to removing the veil that's wearing me? And all of a sudden I see that there's an ocean in the desert and it's waiting for me. It's me. It's me. It's me. بنتي شلبي عيونها صليب. When it it's me. When it it's me, it makes it hard to breathe. And it it's me. When it hits me and makes it hard to breathe. And it hits me. When it hits me and makes it hard to breathe. And it hits me. When it hits me and makes it hard to breathe. Thank you. I'll be back.
So, you know, the way I said there's going to be a break, well, we got like a third the way through in half of the time. So you can take a very, very quick toilet break if you wish, but we're going to move on with the next section of the readings, if that's okay with everybody. So next up, we have a grouping of poets: Kelsey Daly, Jamel White, Natalia O'Flaherty, Nidi Zakari Aipe, and Anne-Marie Curran. So very briefly, Kelsey Daly is a student here on the undergrad programme in creative writing. She's 19 years old and an aspiring poet, exploring the everyday for poetic inspiration. Jamel White is a 21-year-old writer in his first year of UCD's New English with Creative Writing degree course. Natalia O'Flaherty probably needs no explanation, which happens when you're on the Late Late Show. You've met it. She's a wonderful Irish spoken word poet, has performed at some of the country's most prestigious cultural centres, exciting events and high-profile media slots. Commissioned to write a new piece for RTE's A Woman's World programme, she performed Not Like the Other Girls on the Late Late Show. And for anyone that saw that, it was one of those sort of, you know, stop everything moments. Who is this new kid on the block? It was pretty amazing. Anne-Marie Curran is a poet from the northwest of Ireland. Her debut wonderful collection, Blood Rot, was published by Dura Press in 2017, and it was shortlisted for the Shine Strong Award for Best First Collection in Ireland and for the 2018 Julie Suck Award in the US. She's the author of a suite of letterpress poems about Dublin titled Town, published by the Salvage Press, and that's been a wonderful project and endeavour for so many writers here. She lives and works in Dublin. She's extremely brave and wonderful in her writing and poetry. I'm a big admirer of it. Nidi Zakaria is also a UCD student, joint winner of the 2019 inaugural Ireland Chair of Poetry Student Prize. So that's the next grouping of poets, followed again by wonderful music by Farah. So if we give them all a warm round of applause. Thank you. So if I just call Kelsey Daly.
Hello, my name is Kelsey Daly. This is my first ever poetry reading, actually. Yeah. So it's great to be here and really great to get an opportunity to read a poetry out loud like ever. The first poem that I'm going to read is called Bits and Pieces. It's a poet that my creative writing professor just said to me that it was really great and deserved to be published, so I'm going to read it here because might as well, if I can just find it. Here it is. Putting myself together again, papers and scissors. I took a picture of myself, smiling, painted it, then cut it into pieces. I taped it back together again, randomly, thinking it was prettier when I couldn't see it. Part of me wished I could be as thin as paper, easily torn into pieces, easily destroyed. The other part of me remembered I am. All I need is a few hard words. Thank you. I have another poem here, it's just short. It doesn't actually have a title yet. I decided not to title it. Frozen, preserved, pasteurised, neatly folding the tension into the fridge. Moulding, rusted, marked black, organising the arguments into a timeline, stored in a damp cupboard beside the medication. Dustpan and brush, the rubbish never lands in the bin. That's it. Thank you for listening to me. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Hey, so my name's Jamal White. I'm a classmate of Kelsey's. I'm going to be off this as quick as I got on because I'm only doing one poem. I'm still kind of at a stage with it now where every poem I do, I feel like I'm improving, but as such renders anything beforehand irrelevant to me. So, yeah. So this is kind of based on a man I shared a house with for a few years of my life, and my general distrust of father figures because of that. So yeah, super high. So there were boots in the hall, but before they were there, they walked shit all over the linoleum, and the dog tried to eat it. Beyond that, the disgruntled living room grew mould in the corner that caught on your chest until it spread something yucky on the bronchioles like the raspy armchair cough with the Angelus and the 6-1 News in quotation, they should all be hanged. Something stirred with the kettle in the dusty cupboard, kept well hid among the glasses and the mug with the cocktail sticks that read, "Number 1 Dad." Faded away now because it was house unholy. A decade watched from his side, 8 beers and a pack of something salty. It was undone from carpet to ceiling. And steadfast to your homestead, you came home instead to take your place against the walls. But someone's boots trod shit all over the hall, and the dog stood lapping it up between both of you for just one last peaceful moment. Thank you so much.
Hello. Firstly, I love nothing more in the world than seeing people perform poetry for the first time. Because I still act like I'm performing poetry for the first time and I'm doing it like 2 years or something, which is a long time. But when you're 19, it's a long time. But yeah, that was brilliant. They were both brilliant. I loved them. But yeah, thanks for having me, Elaine, everyone. I never really get to listen to poetry anymore because I don't go to listen to poetry anymore. But besides that, it's lovely to be here and it's great to share the stage with so many different types of poets as well, because I'm going to do something almost extremely different. Oh my God, is she taking the mic off the mic stand? Yes, she is. I'm not going to start rapping or anything, I promise. I'm just getting myself more comfortable in my surroundings. But the first poem I'm going to do is a poem called Cherry Blossom, and it's about my cousin Christopher, and a lot of people know this one if you know who I am. And I hope you like it. It's just about him, who he was, and most importantly, who he was to me. So it's called Cherry Blossom for Christopher. Your cheeks were cherry blossom pink, and your smile covered your face. Your lyrics stung and made me think, but your words held little grace. A sick cipher of a soul still searching for its happy place. Your laugh bellowed and boomed, and your magic tricks mesmerised. Your lanky legs left you to loom, but your height couldn't hide those tired eyes. A life less lived, more so survived. You came in one day, kid's case in hand, made it clear if Spider-Man was Eminem, then you'd be Stan, his biggest fan. The little ones loved you, but little me, I still shunned you. Me, being me, held on to my begrudgery, born and fawn from stories of break-ins and thievery. It was guilty, until proven not to be. But you sure as shite proved yourself to me, proved yourself to be more than your history, proved yourself to be family. But listen to me, getting soft. This is one slagging match I might have lost at the thoughts of you winning. Your orange head grinning and grinning, mine spinning and spinning like the world in an acid trance. Or the deadly dance of a mood enhancer, bleeding chancer. Taught yourself a DJ, played me pon the replay just to see what I'd say, and stuff got serious. Grime and techno rhymes to make you let go of your thoughts. Get lost in the rhythm and beat. Switch over to some emo just to keep me on me feet. And then you told me mango didn't dazzle you while I was slagging you. Told you it was a Dublin thing. Couldn't relate cause you were loyal to a king and queen, you proddy fiend. Then you'd snap, head slap, Tammy take it back cause you weren't no Brit. Eye roll, fake spit, and with that same Yorkshire grit, you'd say, nah, I'm Irish, mate. And while I'd slag, I'd never disagree. See, you were to Ireland what Ireland was to you, and that was true. Bird streaked orange but blood running blue, not like royalty, no more like loyalty. Not to queen and country, but to being a culture, but to us and the promises you made. But to us and the boy we thought we saved. But baby, get you weren't meant to be saved. It finally hit that you weren't meant to be saved. You were cherished like a cherry blossom tree, and now it's clear to me. You'd been gone for so long, we'd forgotten your power. Your laugh and your love was like that little pink flower, came, changed, rearranged and left us reeling, lost and grieving our feelings of joy. We watched our baby get turned into a big boy, played with pills instead of toys, tied with lives, losing yours, breaking yours, leaving me lost for words. Through all your critique and slight tweaking of my writing, there was one thing we agreed on without any need for fighting. Our words will be our ammunition, our troops will lead a brighter mission. This was our vision. But your tongue swallowed bullets and didn't make them. Your brain stockpiled nukes and your shaky hands made you take them. Why'd you take them? You went to a party and never came home. At least you died as you lived. Thank you. For my next trick, so that was about Christopher. He'd love to have a poem written about him. He was very egocentric, but then again, anyone who writes anything and says it to an audience has to have a bit of an ego, so here we are. Here we all are. But yous are great. Yous are great for listening. This next poem, I wrote them down in an order and I can't remember what they were, so sorry to anyone who has to edit this. What's up? But this is, well, I do. Yeah, okay, whatever. So I'm going to do a poem called The Irony of Entitlement. And there are some small children in the room, so I will have to edit it on the spot. But whatever. This is a poem about a drug user and the perceptions of him. And there's a lot of different character voices in it, which I sometimes don't do very well. So if you're confused, don't worry, everyone else is as well. And yeah, this is The Irony of Entitlement. Okay, I'm going to say bold words, ladies and gentlemen, with the children in the room. Okay, bold words. He shouts pigs when the guards pass. He calls his rolling skills art even when rolled in public parks. He lost his father, lies to his mother, dead to his sister, steals from his brothers. Still he hoards his abuse of robbing scum at the nearest TD, or some other poor, politically pertained prick. He's not like you and me, no, he's the epitome of all things wrong with this system. And by God is he brazen, unlike any youth I've ever met. Still he claims his disrespect when he's thrown off the Lewis for public indecency. But I'm not talking about his dick, I'm talking about his feet. I'm talking about his toe, the high, the heroin, looking for somewhere to go, looking for somewhere to flow, looking for somewhere to... Oh. He finds a vein. The substance, a savour direct to his brain, numbs the hurt and the pain, if only for a little while. It's just about now that he's noticed by a child who until then was full of smiles, pure dreams. Now he's screaming, Mammy, that man's dead. No, son, he's just off the head. So we have to ask it to leave. Mammy, help him, he can't breathe. So we have to ask it to leave. Why are they doing that? What did he do? Sit your ass down, that's enough out of you. A quick heave and a hasty lob. It's all part of the job. It's 4 or 5 times a monthly. It's a free country. Comes a hay shout from the Lewis stop. An angry look from one of the state schools and a sad laugh from the other. The boy gets dragged back to his seat by his mother, away from the crumpled stranger. And as the carriage moves long, distancing them from their perceived danger, that little boy prays for that monster of a man. Thank you. I like that there's poets here as well that do mostly, if not exclusively, written poetry, because as you can tell, I don't write my poems down to read them. I barely write them down at all, so they're all just kind of in my noggin. So when I had to write some out for the archives, I didn't even know my own words. I had to say the poem. It was weird. Our brains definitely work differently from each kind of different type of poet. There's definitely loads of overlaps, but this is one poem that I think could easily be read by someone else, because I get so irritated when other people read my poetry. Isn't that terrible? Because I have it so specific in my head. But this one's, you can read this one if you want. That's what I'm saying. This is all right. I allow you. But this is again about a drug user and her relationship with drugs, and also the person who introduced her to drugs. It's only short, and it's kind of sad. There we go. A bit like myself. Yeah, Save Me it's called, and again, read it if you want. Your words are riding with that rancid role play tone. You say jump, I say how high am I getting tonight? And I only get me answer when our eyes roll to the skies and our lives roll by and our lives roll by. Seek a niche to fill our bloods with peace, leaving pieces in places no one looks, crannies and nooks, a bridge or a hook, watch it cook, never dinner, getting thinner, we're the winners when we're warm, so we're winning when we're sinning. Blood at peace, our sweet relief. Me ma, she warned me the dangers of trusting men, but then again, who worries more than mother hen? You're not a stranger, you're a saviour, my behaviour is not learned, my title is not earned, they are cultivated and curated, breath baited till you belt up and you save me. Mary made me. Me daddy warned me of this hell, but all the lovely lies you tell were sweeter than his lullabies. Those lovely lies, what lies within this vial of sin and sorrow, when tomorrow's just a pipe dream and this little bottle pipe screams, inhale me. Daddy saved me. Thank you. I'm gonna do 2 more, I think. One of them's really short. I wrote it yesterday in a charity shop when I bought this t-shirt, Shop Sustainable, but it's only like a paragraph long. It's not about charity shops or anything, it's about my weird brother, but like whatever, we'll get to that one. First one I'm gonna do is called Brass Tacks, and I also done this one on the Late Late Show. Humble brag, whatever. But this one was actually written not for anything. I just wrote this for myself, which is why it's probably better than the other one. So it's about being poor, still going on the session, and yada, yada, yada. Here's the poem. It's called Brass Tacks. I wrote it, obviously. Working twice your age in hours for less than minimum wage, but legally it's all G, so we just turned the page to a different story. Sure, it's only for the minute, there's nothing in it, and there's nothing else out there. Or at least that's the fear. Seeded in the minds of the youth since the big boy bankers burst the bubble and left us in the rubble. The best of us still babies, but still we're the ones in trouble. We get the board and the blame, they're all the same. Won't get up off your backside, won't get up off that phone. Why don't you battle a landslide of trying to buy your own home in 2019? Let's clear the working class, it's still a working machine. And the electronic age is closing the gap between man and manual labour. Do us a favour and digitise the criticised aspects of human error while you try cope the compassion held by a carer. Or a shopkeep who lets you off with a few quid at least once a week because he knows you're struggling too. And he knows there's nothing else he can do. But for to ease your burden by a few brass tacks to which you say thanks and he nods and yous now. If it weren't for to each other, there'd be no place left to go. The brain drain might have left us in drought, but there's no doubt that the stout inside our rain's still a-falling. Like the good times never left because the locals still a-calling your name. Every weekend the same, ease the pain of a back-breaking shift that suits your carpal tunnel itch. Gather the boys, make some noise, let out your cathartic cries of times gone by and times to be and all the times you miss, because you see, there's no thinking when you're drinking, sinking pints and dodging points of contention. Flinch at the mention of a well-rounded discussion, boost percussion, drum and bass, wreck the place off your face, blissful disgrace. It's the power of the youth that slam cans and born zoots, cause hands up, don't shoot doesn't come into it here. We're not living in fear of the systematic, semi-automatic or the boys in blue, but what's true for me isn't true for you. We have the privilege to accept our fate and blame the state with our commie dogma driving mates. We have the privilege to spray FTG and ACAP and still make a home to see mammy. We have the privilege to be bricks in the wall, cogs in the wheel with a net of means tested welfare to catch us if we fall. And so, we settle into passive aggression. We settle into accepting recession. We settle into blissful disgrace, but never ignorance, because the only thing we know is our place. I said the only thing we know is our place. Thank you. This one's tiny, I promise. I'll leave it alone now. I'm really looking forward to hearing everyone else, and I'm really happy that I've got to hear everyone I have heard so far. And I'm buzzing to be here. This is a short poem, and it's called Son. Not my son, my mum's son, my brother. That's how it works, if you didn't know. But yeah, it's only like a few pages long, but it's just not really about anything, but also about loads at the same time. It's proper poetry, this one is. This one's actually, you have to think about it. So delighted I got one of them in. So this is called Son. And thanks so much for listening so far. Thank you for one clap. That's all I need. Validation. Got it. Yup. I'm so sorry. Right. Here we go. You sound better in yourself, son. Never mind the damage you've done, son. Never mind the trauma you've triggered. We'd figured it would go with you, son. Our heartache left for the west with you, son. Never mind the damage you've done, son. One day we'll look back and laugh with pursed lips, a humph at the trials and a nod at your triumph, son. We're so proud of you, son. You sound better in yourself, son. Never mind the damage you've done, son. Never mind. Like you never did, son. Thanks so much for listening.